In this segment, we continue to look at contemporary America, specifically the scientific and technological advances. Technology, quite simply put, is the application of science. And we have seen dramatic increases in technology that have affected American life in many significant areas. The American space program was a triumph of American technological prowess, and technology has made communication and information much more accessible to many more people. It all really kicks off with the race to space, with the creation of NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. You see, in the early 1960s, after America had fallen behind in the space race to the evil Soviet Union, President John F. Kennedy pledged that by the end of the 1960s, by the end of the decade, America would successfully land a man on the moon and return him safely to home. And so the race was on to the moon, and that lasted through the entire 1960s. While America fell behind with the first person in space, the first person to orbit, and the first satellite, we did win the race to the moon. America's first astronaut to go into outer space was John Glenn, as the first American to orbit the world. In 1969, in August of 1969, the United States finally won the race to the moon with astronaut Neil Armstrong, who became the first person to leave the Earth and step foot on the moon. As he made his triumphant climb down the ladder of the lunar module, he proclaimed, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." Yes, humanity had now gone to the moon. We planted our flag and placed our footsteps firmly there. It wasn't until the 1980s that the United States finally put American women in space. The first American woman astronaut was Dr. Sally Ride, and she successfully was part of a space shuttle mission in the 1980s. The first American civilian who was supposed to go into orbit was Krista McCullough, a school teacher, but regrettably, her space shuttle adventure ended in disaster, and that was the first catastrophe that NASA had suffered since before we landed on the moon. But over the last several decades, America has improved its technology and its media, and we've brought about better access to communication and information in rural areas, but also extended it for businesses and individual consumers. As a result, many more Americans have access to global information, to global viewpoints, and to global products. When we take a look at some of the specific technological advances that have greatly impacted us in contemporary times, obviously cable, 24-hour news networks like CNN have allowed us access to information immediately as it goes on around the world. We've seen a rise in personal computers, as most of us have personal computers in our homes. We've seen cell phones spring up with the multitude of applications that they supply, and of course the World Wide Web, which continues to link people together from all different nations around the world. All of these inventions improve our access to information and greatly improve global communication. We've also seen changes in the way that we work, in the way that we go to school, and even our health care. When it comes to work, we've seen a rise in this thing called telecommuting. That is working from home via the internet and being online to do your job from home. We also have distance learning, where people are now taking classes online, some even earning their entire high school diploma or college degree online. We have seen an increase in the growth of what we call white-collar careers, that is, service industries and people engaged in working with these technologies. We've also had a great deal of breakthroughs in medical research, going all the way back to the development of the vaccine for polio by Dr. Jonas Salk. Now Americans are expected to live healthier and longer than ever before. With all these great advancements, could there possibly be a downside? Well, today, many Americans point to outsourcing as being one of those downsides. Outsourcing is when American companies are hiring overseas to fill jobs and services, and they do this through the communications network. Whether it's online or by phone, many American businesses have offices overseas that service right here in America. We've also seen an increase in what we call offshoring. This is actually when an American company builds a factory in another country, usually because the labor prices are much less. And while that's good for the American company, it does not employ American citizens. So those would be considered two of the downsides to these breakthroughs in technology. But we need to understand that all this change has really modified the way the world works. The vastness of the planet has shrunk incredibly due to technology. Whereas once upon a time, Christopher Columbus led a voyage of discovery to a new world, now we live in essentially a global community where we have access to virtually everywhere at any time.